Good day, and welcome to Far Reaches Extra, or FRX as we call it. FRX is a chance for the gang to reach a little deeper with a one-on-one interview and discover people and topics that make this world worth living in. We hope you enjoy this random journey, and feel free to send in your suggestions or even call us out to be on the next episode of Far Reaches Extra.
Do it. There, we're there. We're live.
Awesome.
Today I'm going to visit with Kristina Ribellia. I always feel like that's the right way to say her name. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
All right, right on.
Yeah.
So Kristina and I visited probably, I don't know how, was it in 2020?
It was, I think so. So maybe even a year ago.
Yeah. So it was really early and it was before COVID, I'm pretty sure. And she was just getting, I just wrote it down, Western Water Services up and going. And I've been watching over the year, and it looks like she's been making tremendous strides. I saw you broke into the Midland market or Odessa market, so that's got to be huge. So
it is, yeah. So now, which Odessa are you thinking? Are you thinking Texas or are you thinking
Texas?
Texas. Okay, so I'm talking the Washington market there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which actually is a huge market here in Washington as well, and I could see how that would be confusing for sure.
So, yeah, I figured if you're down there playing oil field water, then you're at a whole nother stratosphere.
Okay, well, I have not reached that stratosphere yet. We have not yet with Western Water Market, but we are about potentially to go international even. There's just been a ton of interest with using the platform, right, as a tool to market water rights, even internationally, which is really interesting. So it's growing.
So I think how I want to start is talk about, can you just give everybody that isn't familiar with Western Water Services a brief synopsis of it? And then I want to visit about like what you learned and like what some of the mistakes, maybe we'll just take it all at a time. But what I really want to know is what really surprised you about it. But let's start with the definition for what synopsis on what you guys do.
Okay, sure. So it's Western Water Market, westernwatermarket.com. It's an online, essentially listing service where water right buyers and sellers can list water rights for sale, or if you're a buyer, of course, list as a buyer. Since water right transactions are incredibly complex, we also have a growing network of water right professionals, including consultants and attorneys that are listing on the market to serve as a resource for folks. So it's essentially this hub, this go-to place to buy, sell, and lease water rights in the West. That's our primary service, I would say. And then we have other things that we are piloting and exploring with due diligence reviews and running auctions. That was the one with the Odessa water right. We currently are running an auction for that. So it's and exploring with due diligence review.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do I need to work on my audio on my end at all?
No, it was me. I was trying to turn this on because with the service I use, if you do too many, you can't see all the questions. So I like to turn it on. So if somebody has a question, I can ask it.
Nice.
So,
okay.
But I have to do that. It'd be very tricky with my phone. So tell me a little bit more about the water auction. That's interesting. And how'd that come about?
Yeah. So we're just trying to build in as much transparency and efficiency as possible, right? So these transactions, listings, making a connection can take a long time. So with this Odessa groundwater right, we said we're gonna break the mold all around. So we had a professional due diligence review completed on the water right, which is available to view right now on westernwatermarket.com/Odessa. You can view the due diligence review. You can view a map of potential transferability, so you can assess, is this water right, can it be transferred within or to my property? And then it's submit an offer right then and there. And it was really born out of the interest of the water right holder who wanted us to market his water right to the fullest extent. And we thought this was the best way to do it. It was to actually, and to assist with those negotiations or actually just accepting the offers on his behalf. So we decided to run an auction. And we've sent out nearly 300 postcards. We've done ads in the Capitol Press and other local publications to really just get the word out. And it's just has had a tremendous response. So it's pretty exciting.
That'll be super exciting to go through. So
yeah.
And I'll make sure I'll link both the Western Water Services and the auction, the Odessa auction, in the show comments at the end here.
Right on. Thanks, Rich.
So that's just fascinating. And you've come so far in a short amount of time. Did you have any expectation that you were going to get to this point so quickly?
I don't know. I didn't know how long it would take, to tell you the truth. So no, to be completely honest, I had no clue we would be now, at this stage in 7 states with water rates coming on and off the market and professionals across the West helping folks. No, I never would have guessed that in such a short period of time. So it has been awesome. When I launched this, no one knew about this. I didn't want to share it with anyone. I didn't want to get any kind of negative feedback or people saying don't do it. I was a little nervous if it would be embraced by the water right professional community. Would they see this as a potential threat, or would they see it as value added? And I have just been so just honored and excited to see and to know that it's absolutely been value added for them. So it's been embraced by the professional community, which was the big unknown and a huge surprise. I'm just really grateful for their support, for sure.
And I'll give my testimony of the time that I attempted to use it. As a real estate agent, it fascinates me, and I really think it has it's a powerful tool that you can use when you're trying to put different land, because sometimes a buyer will come to you with a checklist of things they need, and often you can find the perfect property, but you can't find the right water for it. But if you can hustle around and find somebody that has the water and differ, or if it's on your service already, the professionals that you put together in your network really help to facilitate that.
Yeah.
And I really think as it goes, I still think that as I get better at being a real estate agent, that it's something that I'd like to also broker. But there's a lot of gray areas in there that we're all trying to figure out. But so the scenario I had is I had a mother and son that were looking to start a small farm, and they were having a hard time finding any place with water rights on it. And so I thought, well, I just had the podcast with you probably a couple months earlier, and I was like, maybe there's something here. And so we sort of delved into it. I think she might have contacted you. And you put us in contact with a lawyer in Bend who's a fascinating gentleman. I cannot remember his name right now. And he was super excited about this service. And so water, especially this year after one of the worst droughts we've been through, is always on everybody's mind. And the more I learn about real estate, the more I learn there's the history that you hear in regions, and then there's the history that the exchange and transfer of water rights tells. And they're sometimes very much different than what And so the West is really built on water, and the people, it's the real savvy people, the landowners that really understand water, and it's such a critical thing to understand as a landowner or as somebody going into a real estate transaction that resolves around land. That and then there's the whole other level of leasing water rights that you have if you're not using them. And so I think you timed it well, and I'm glad that you were the one that's the early mover on this.
Oh, thank you, Rich. Yeah. These are, these water rights are complex, as I mentioned, and as you know, right? And to make a deal happen, it can take several professionals. It can take the broker, it can take a consultant and an attorney, right? It's like a team effort with nearly every transaction. And you really do need that local professional who understands the regulations and what's happening with those particular water rights. It's different not just from state to state, but from basin to basin, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like that's why we had to build out a network of professionals, because I'm not even the expert here in Washington, even though I've been working in water rights for 8 years. I would defer to other people who that is, they're tracking that day in and day out, those specific water rights and regulations for a certain region. So I'm so glad you reached out to our attorney there. Yeah, with Clyde Snow out of Bend.
In my lifetime, I'm going to get I'm going to get a deal done. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I know. I can't wait for you to join our network, right? And it's so incredibly helpful to have your background as a real estate broker on these deals. You take a real estate broker partnered with a water right consultant or attorney, and you can do some pretty awesome things. So, yeah. Rich, you're our missing piece on the platform. And yeah.
Well, and I think did you talk to Colton also?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got people paying attention.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've had great conversations, and we'll see what comes of that out in Montana and Wyoming. Yep.
So here's my interesting thing. From the very first time that I started thinking, I want to be a real estate agent. I want to I wanted to deal in land and ranch lands and farmlands and everything. I realized that water was a very critical component of it. So I sat down and put together a model of to really measure the value of a ranch, because you can compare two ranches, and really the differentiator is the amount of water that the ranch has water rights to. And really the true price, there's the aesthetics of the ranch, and then there's the ranches that I call like everyday working ranches that have tremendous amount of water rights, but they might not be as aesthetically appealing. But ultimately, I think they have a lot more value. And in my region, I've found that when you compare them all across the board and do some equations on it, an acre of water rights is about worth $500 or $5,000, a little bit higher than that. Okay. Yeah, when you bulk it into the rest. And you hear like it's water rights are going for $21,000 an acre. I think it's very much regional and what their crops they're growing, but but every time somebody buys a farm or land, that it's not necessarily all. It's not, they're not buying all just water rights. So really, the overall value of the land is more tied to the amount of water that it has in the case of a farm or a ranch, and you can end up buying a lot of how would you say it? I call them dry land, just dry acres that have less value than. So really, the bulk of the value sits in how much water each property has. And so I find it fascinating that I think that the way that we evaluate property and value it is sort of outdated, because there's not many listings that factor that in.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely been something that I've had discussions with folks over the past 8 years or so, really is with property values being accounted for, right? Are they properly being valued in appraisals? And I'm not sure that they always are, right? And you know better. But it's fascinating, especially when we're looking to property comp sales for information that may help inform the water market. Well, they may not be properly valued in the first place, right? So there's a few different ways to get to those numbers, but in a lot of cases, there's not even enough water right transactions or comparable transactions to that particular water right to really draw a clear connection to what would be considered fair market value.
Yep. No, it's just I'm going to say fascinating about 14 billion times in this, but water, water in the West is one of the most fascinating laws and marketable things that I can think of. And so, what I'm wondering is, so you're a year, 18 months into, almost 2 years into this this great start of this company. What is something that you learned that you didn't in a million years think that you were going to learn?
Oh, that I would learn. Oh man, how hard it really is being an entrepreneur, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Did not expect. Maybe I knew that, but it certainly painted a much more rosy picture. But when you're wearing all the hats, that's definitely it's a day-to-day challenge, right? I'm sure you're well aware. But in terms of the market, what have I learned? That surprised me. I would say definitely that there's not just a need here in the Northwest for a tool and resource like this, but really across the West, actually, even across the US. And now I'm finding just internationally, right? Very surprised to know that this tool and resource hasn't really been available, something like this, in other regions of our country or of the West. And that's been actually pretty surprising because it's not what I'm offering here isn't rocket science, right? This is some pretty, you know, this is pretty basic. It just is so surprising to see actually the infancy we are in, right? This is at the start of the water right market, I feel like. Water right transactions have happened or water has been traded, for thousands of years, but not in this way. And it's so surprising to me, right? Like we're on the edge of it. And there's a few others out there that are as well. And it's pretty basic so far, to tell you the truth, right? Like,
yeah. Well, what you're doing is you're taking something that just a few people dealt in, and you've sort of made it more transparent. And when I first heard of your business model, I never thought that would be one of the offshoots of it. You are actually making more people aware of the trading of water here back and forth, and I think that's invaluable. And I'm sure that I doubt it threatened anybody, but I'd like that they're probably thinking, why didn't I think of this? Or or now they lost the inside line that they'd probably built a long time to establish. But like you said, it seems like a lot of water professionals are sort of embracing it, and that's a positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's definitely why, one of the biggest reasons why I launched Western Water Market was just I wanted everyone, the public, everyone to have access to participate in the market, right? And to know how to better protect and manage their water rights so that they were actually an asset that they could market and sell or they could lease. Before I launched this, it was really, I felt like the market was really reserved for the few people and entities that had the resources and knowledge to engage in the market. And that really started to grow a lot of distrust, at least here in Washington. And you hear this in the Colorado River Basin as well, right? So if we just continue to daylight this and to make it accessible for everyone, and as transparent as possible, hopefully we'll build trust and more people will be able to engage and have access to the market.
Yeah, and I can say how important having trust is, because living near the Klamath Basin, that is probably one of the biggest water debacles in the last, it's been a long time. So that's great. I mean, it's good to it's good for more people to understand what's going on in their local watersheds, and how it all functions and how it interacts and how it plays into their economy. And you don't go quite that broad, but you give them pieces of the puzzle that make it easier to put that whole big picture together, which I commend you on. So can you give us a little background on how your international conversations came about?
Yeah, well, I don't know what has happened, but I've had, 2 inquiries in the last week from folks that are needing help selling water in other countries, which is just bizarre. So we'll see what comes of that, of those conversations. And then there was another one a couple of months ago, and ultimately we decided not to list that on the market. But I'm thinking I may let these folks. It's a tool. I don't know. It's kind of awkward. Not awkward. It's just like we're just providing a service of $49 a month to list on the market, right? If you have some water rights in Costa Rica that you need help marketing, I guess we'll put them on the market, see how it goes. But it's fascinating, and I'm not even sure, honestly, how this works in terms of business and international commerce. You have to pay USD. Like, I don't even know, right? Like, probably should find out. But just the service that we're offering here is a listing service. It's not commission based off the sale, or we wouldn't even get involved in, at all in the transaction. So we'll see. But I think it just speaks to the need for a platform like this.
Yes. So I'm sure that you look at your website metrics and everything to see where your business or where your interest is coming from.
Yeah.
You can share whatever you want about this, but were you amazed at the response? Like, when you start looking at it, was your mind blown by like where everybody was looking at it from? And is it mostly centralized in the West, or is it international, or is it across the country, or where's the interest? Where's the people most interested in it?
So, such a great question. So our biggest hits are here in Washington, which is no surprise. This is where I launched the market. This is where, the founders were, and the market is growing the quickest, I would say. But certainly touches across every state in the US, across the globe. But what's fascinating is that the interest that you see here in the West does mirror the transactions that are occurring, and that Westwater Research, for instance, has been tracking and documenting through their Waterlytics database. So I was at a conference last week. I was actually presenting just after Harry Seeley from Westwater Research, who shared maps of the distributions of sales across the West. And then I showed my map. I shared the analytics, Google Analytics map for the platform, and they mirrored one another, which was just fascinating, right? Fascinating again, but I guess it's no real surprise, but it's just neat to see. And certainly, what you see on Western Water Market, those are the listings, but there is so much happening outside of that, right? There's inquiries, people making inquiries with folks on the listings. They're calling me, they're emailing me, inquiring about things. We have, I think, just about 400 people on our email list that are subscribed now. That email gets shared like, 3 times that once I send it out, people send it to their networks. It's really interesting. Yeah.
That's got to be extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
So
thank you. It is.
So you were talking about the challenges of being an entrepreneur, and there's this Stoic saying called "the obstacle is the way." I think it's Seneca that said it. But so, what are some of the obstacles that you have had to overcome since getting going that were particularly challenging, but were ultimately positive towards your business?
I think the biggest one for me as a just entrepreneur and starting out is I'm not a salesperson, right? So I had to get over the, fear of people saying no, right? And I'm not interested, or not now, or that's been the biggest one. And I still struggle with that, to tell you the truth. It's like, I am not a salesperson. I don't like it. I don't, I should be reaching out to more people, and I need to. And it's just kind of that uncomfortableness. So that's, I'm so sorry, Rich. What was your question again? I got caught up in the thought of my words around that.
No, that was it. And I think that's a common one. I, for years, didn't think I was going to ever be a very good salesman, but it turns out it's one of the things I really like. So, but it's sort of like the fear of public speaking. I think that a degree beyond that is like being a salesperson and picking up the phone, cold calling. Really, you have to put yourself out on the line, and it's even hard when you know that you have to do it and there's a good return on it. You're still like, why am I doing this? But yeah, so I think overcoming the obstacles and the barriers that we create in our own mind are some of the hardest obstacles to overcome.
Right. That's exactly it. And it certainly has gotten a little bit easier as I have things to actually point to on the market. Right. But it's still a bit uncomfortable. That's the big one. Thankfully, I have not gotten any negative response from any of the state agencies that have, thankfully, no one has asked me to shut down the platform or to not provide the service in their state or in the community, or, so I've been really grateful for that.
You're in the, what is it? Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting realm. So,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's very contentious. So
you probably know every water cliche that's ever been uttered.
We can go through them right now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I just have a few quick follow-up questions, and we'll wrap up. But
sure.
What do you see in your future and for Western Water Services?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I see that we're going to evolve the platform, right? Like, I have got to move from our version 1 platform into a more robust, kind of sophisticated platform. So I definitely see that. I'm not as interested in expanding internationally or even to the East Coast. I would really like to focus primarily here in the Western US. And I'm hoping that we'll see more leases occurring, right? As the trust is built, as transparency increases, that we'll have a more fluid leasing market on Western Water Market. So I think it's just going to grow from here. I recently had heard, I think it was Google turned 23 or 24 this year. I started to look up these other companies, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, Airbnb is already 13 years old. Well, Google, I maybe started using that 10 years ago, but they've been around for, however long. Airbnb, I started using that 5 years ago. So I'm just thinking, where I'm starting out year and a half in here, maybe I should be feeling pretty good about that. And we'll just continue to grow just the way that we are. And it's just going to take a decade or more, right, to really pick up traction. So I'm in it for the long haul. I'll be here.
Well, that's great. Well, to have early success makes it probably easier. So
thank you, Rich, for sure.
Yeah. And as always, I love visiting with you. You have such a optimistic outlook on everything, and just from the time we talked last time until the time we talk now, it's amazing the growth that you've seen. So I really commend you on a great effort.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to have you on my podcast, if that's okay. Next, we'll have you on the Western Water Market podcast. I would love to be active on there.
I would love to. I'd love to see what questions you're going to stump me with.
That sounds great. Good. Let's set it up.
All right.
Thanks, Rich.
All right. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.